Well, since my wife brought up the topic of reading Prabhupada's books, I thought I'd continue with a few thoughts I had. First, I offer my respectful obeisances to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and to all the assembled devotees. Vansha kalpa drupascha, kripa sindhabevacha, patitanam pavanibhyo, vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. About the Chaitanya Charitamrita especially, it was a couple of years ago, or 3 years ago, we read the Adi Lila. It always looks impenetrable because it's so large, and if you skim through it, you find one or two purports that seem highly technical. And Burijan Prabhu once told me that when he was trying to write and people would come over to visit him, the way he'd get rid of them is say, hey, let's read some Adi Lila. And most people would immediately decamp. And we read it recently. I can't remember which year. If somebody else can, please remind me. A few years ago. Yeah, he knows everything. He's been there. He sits through every reading and completely focused. When was it? 2022, when we first got back here, right? So I was amazed after we finished the Adi Lila. I thought, well, here's why I thought it, what I'm about to say. Is circa 1975 in Atlanta, 76, there was a sale on Adi Lilas because there was a mismatch and far as the sets go, and they had the BBT had a large quantity of Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila, so they have a huge discount for them. And the temple president, Balavanta, had filled up his warehouse with Adi Lila Volume 1. And we were distributing them at the airport. And many of the people there, because there was a military buildup at that time for the Vietnam War, which was winding down, but still they were recruiting a lot of people. We were distributing these Adi Lila Volume 1s to simple young men, came from rural backgrounds, and we always wondered about what might have happened once they went away. We didn't necessarily have a follow-up program for them. And I always thought that perhaps it had fallen on barren soil. And when we read it, we took the time to meticulously go through, read it, every purport, every word in the book. When I came to the end, I thought, this is accessible. Somebody could read this and get the full idea of Krishna consciousness. And another devotee had pointed out to me once, I think it was Radhika Raman Prabhu, who said, regarding Prabhupada's repetition of certain principles, he said he wanted to make sure that anyone who read anywhere got as complete a picture as possible of what the purpose of Krishna consciousness is and how to attain it. And recently, we just finished reading the Madhya Lila, which was quite a marathon. And I didn't hear anybody complaining as we read through the day from morning till it got dark, which was what it required to finish the whole Madhya Lila. And by the way, we figured out a new way to calibrate our reading, which was the very smart devotees in our group used AI to figure out how many words a day we were reading. Previously, we do by pages. In fact, I made an app called Be a Sage Page by Page. Okay, one person has it. But that sometimes, one page is more dense than others. But this time we had gone by how many words we read every day. And as we continued to read our quota every day, I was reading from a book, and it's a set of Chaitanya Charitamritas that has been here for a while. And we read it once before, many years ago, and I had put little flags in it, those little sticky flags that you can get at Office Depot or whatever place you frequent for your office supplies. And I noticed that I resonated with every place I put a flag the last time and thought, what an excellent point. And there were about 40, 50 devotees that came to listen. The program has expanded over time. When I first started coming here, we'd sit up on the roof. There's a little patio up there that fits about 5, 6 people, right outside the king. The king used to own this, or as Maharaj used to say, a small-time king owned this place. And we'd sit out there till we got pushed out by mosquitoes. And then over the years, as we've continued to read, more and more devotees have come to listen. So the experience has been reading through an entire section that we get a more complete view of Śrīla Prabhupāda and the way he taught Krishna consciousness. And the way I've thought of it is, it's like a hologram where you see the person manifest right before you. Perhaps they have them at Disneyland or something like that, where there's it's a phantom, but it's created by computer image and light, and then the person's actually there. And we found that by reading through and just listening to Prabhupada's purports, that he personally manifests there in the room or wherever one is. And another thought about association with Prabhupada is that no one can have more intimate association with a person who's an author outside of reading his or her books, because people are hard to get to, especially famous people. How close can you be to somebody? You maybe have 5 seconds or a few minutes, or you might have an incidental meeting. But if someone, an author, puts his or her intimate thoughts into a book, you can go sit somewhere, anywhere in the world and read it, and you're getting the best of that person. And that's exactly what Prabhupada said. He indicated several times that everything I had to say I put in my books. And he also said in an interview that I refreshed my memory about this morning, that a reporter asked him, who will succeed you? And Prabhupada didn't go into any detail on that except to say that when the person said, when you die, and Prabhupada said, I'll never die. And then he followed that by saying, because I will live forever in my books. And they will utilize. And I thought about that statement, they will utilize. And there are lots of different opinions, because every jiva has a unique way of looking at the world. And there are also, based on that, conflicts. And there are also different moods that people have. And an organization has to have a foundational understanding of the mood and method of the ācārya. And Prabhupada's books and his purports are the sound vibration, the primal sound vibration of ISKCON, that is through which one may imbibe that exact mood that Prabhupada had. And also he clearly states his mission there. At the end of the Madhya Lila, we came to a purport that's about 2 pages. And in it, Prabhupada's leaning in to the very generous understanding of our ācāryas in general, which is that this goes out to everyone. And many of the purports that Prabhupada has written are to clarify the fact that this is not a hereditary movement. In other words, the Krishna consciousness is not hereditary, because there is a general tendency for people once they're involved in a communion with God one way or another, then those who have been there can consolidate power and then say it's for us, and nobody else can present it. Whereas the Bhagavatam, as we know famously, Shukadeva Goswami says, Kirato hunandra pulinda pulkasha abhirashumba yavana kasadaya yene chapapa yadapashra yashraya shudyanti tasmai pravivishnave namaha. And anybody from anywhere can take advantage of this because of its power. And so how will we utilize Prabhupada's books? By taking time to read them. And when I met Prabhupada in San Francisco, circa 1973, as a wide-eyed kid just having joined the movement and being part of a book distribution team, when our temple president read our book scores, Prabhupada just said to us, "You must also read my books. I've not written them just for selling. I've written them for you to read, become pure devotees, and go back to Godhead." So that sounds like a good idea, right? So I'm advocating for it. We may have Prabhupada's books, just like a lot of people have Bhagavad Gita, where they say, "Oh yeah, I already know Bhagavad Gita." It's like, "Yeah, tell me something." It's like, well, I mean, my mom read it. But another thought has been that Prabhupada's devotional service was Herculean in the way that he had established a movement all over the world. And famously, he had stayed up all night, as someone mentioned earlier. He didn't sleep for the sake of writing his purports. I thought, who can do that? And how motivated was Prabhupada to do that? It's hard to publish a book. It's hard to publish a pamphlet and get it right. And Prabhupada had brought out the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Of course, in 9 months or so, he had written the whole thing, and then he wanted it published in 2 months. So I've thought several times as a means of motivation that, although I can't do that, what if I tried to put in that much effort reading his books as he put in to write them? That we could try for anyway, right? Say yes. Yes. And my theory is that by following up on what my wife said, that the more we organize opportunities for everyone to read Prabhupada's books more thoroughly, the more questions are answered, and the more we imbibe Prabhupada's mood. It's inescapable, and we don't wonder about it. We know directly Prabhupada has manifested himself as a spiritual hologram right in front of us and spoken to us directly and as intimately as possible, because that's the nature of books. They're miraculous. And I'll just make one last point, which is that Śrīla Prabhupada also wanted us to write. He wrote his books based on the tradition of all the ācāryas. And we're a sampradāya of the book. All ācāryas generally have written and left some literary contribution behind. Sometimes people feel reticent about writing because they say, well, Prabhupada wrote everything, so we shouldn't write anything. But you could look at it a different way, and that is that if we don't write, how can we prove what we got from Prabhupada? And then Prabhupada, at one time, Prabhupada criticized his colleagues from the other institution he was a part of for some time and asked, where are their books? As Prabhupada was producing more and more books, he asked, where are their books? And maybe it's not well known, but Prabhupada advocated, strenuously advocated, that all of his followers should write. Did you know that? Okay, then I'll just read you a quote. and let Prabhupada speak for himself. Are you up for this?
Yes.
Okay, there's a few here. I took out a few out of many more, just to give a taste. Formerly, all activities were performed in connection with Vishnu, but after Satyuga, there were symptoms of disrespectful dealings among Vaishnavas. Śrīla Bhaktivinoda Thakur has said that a Vaishnava is he who has helped others become Vaishnavas. An example of one who has converted many others into Vaishnavas is Narada Muni. A powerful Vaishnava who has converted others into Vaishnavas is to be worshipped. But because of material contamination, sometimes an exalted Vaishnava is disrespected by other minor Vaishnavas. When great saintly persons saw this contamination, they introduced worship of the deity in the temple. This began in Treta Yuga and was especially predominant in Dwapara Yuga. But in Kali Yuga, worship of the deity is being neglected. Therefore, chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra is more powerful than deity worship. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu set a practical example in that he did not establish any temples or deities, but he profusely introduced the Sankirtan movement. Therefore, Krishna consciousness preachers should give more stress to the Sankirtan movement, especially by distributing transcendental literature more and more. This helps the Sankirtan movement. Whenever there is a possibility to worship the deity, we may establish many centers, but generally we should give more stress to the distribution of transcendental literature, for this will be more effective in converting people to Krishna consciousness. Okay, that's the preface. And now it gets to some specific about writing. It is certainly not good to write literature for money or reputation, but to write books and publish them for the enlightenment of the general populace is real service to the Lord. That was Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's opinion, and he specifically told his disciples to write books. He actually preferred to publish books rather than establish temples. Temple construction is meant for the general populace and neophyte devotees. But the business of advanced and empowered devotees is to write books, publish them, and distribute them widely. According to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, distributing literature is like playing on a great mridanga. Consequently, we always request members of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness to publish as many books as possible and distribute them widely throughout the world. But that just means Prabhupada's books, right? Well, let's see if he said anything more specific. I want you to write as my disciples. On this point, Krishna consciousness is not limited. Persons like all the Goswamis wrote so many books. Vishwanath Chakravarti and all the ācāryas wrote books, and still I am writing books. Similarly, all my disciples will write. And finally, everything is there in our books, so learn it and put it in your own way by reproducing. You are also materially well educated, so reproduce what I have taught in your own language. These things are new thoughts. In your Western countries, everyone will be interested. Writing is also required. Let it be published first in our BTG, then sometimes they may be printed into books also. And there's a way in which, now I'll end there. There's a lot more to say. Just with thought of one of my godbrothers with whom I'm close, who taught me something invaluable a while back, which was when he wakes up in the morning, when he puts his feet on the floor, the first thing he says is, "Thank you, Śrīla Prabhupāda." And since I started doing that myself, the first thing I think of when I wake up, when I say thank you, Śrīla Prabhupāda, is a remembrance of the unlimited assets we have, that I have received, and an inspiration to try to take advantage of them. So as Tirobhav is a time for renewal of one's vows and to develop enthusiasm, I pray to Srila Prabhupada on this day that I may remain ever thankful for what he's given me, and may I have the wherewithal to take full advantage of everything he's given. Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna.